The Minnesota Twins series wraps up tomorrow. Joe and I are going to break down the first three games of this Minnesota Twins series and talk about some of the roster moves that are coming with Taylor Saucedo going on the injured list. We're then going to wrap everything up with when Brian Wu is possibly coming back for the Mariners and breaking down the next three games versus the Oakland Athletics. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 85 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Daydara episode of the Hit It Here podcast. And Joe, we're very excited that it's Daydara's episode.
So, like, the most excited. Not that we're showing any form of bias here or anything. But in actuality, Daydara, thank you for being a part of this community. Colton, this is a weird episode because it's not going up at the normal time. You guys are hearing this after Wednesday's game, which is weird. Before we're doing it Wednesday night because the game tomorrow is at 9:30 is when it the broadcast starts. It's a 10 o'clock game. There's no point in us waiting for tomorrow, so it's coming out Wednesday night. I would say evening, but it's Wednesday night. And Colton, looking ahead and around the schedule for the entire year, I never would have thought that we would put out an episode on a Wednesday. Never would have been in the cards. I would never have placed a bet on the fact that our schedule was going to be broken apart due to a random game on Thursday. But here we are, and a word from BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being the sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest stats, news, and scores will be available to you to follow your favorite teams on BetOnline. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And in similar fashion to the first 4-game series that the Mariners played this year, it was against the Red Sox. They dropped game 1 against the Twins. Don't shake your head in disagreement with me. All right? They dropped game 1, Colton, and it was bad vibes. Game 1. It was not a fun time watching that Mariners offense try and do anything, really. Got shut down by Simeon Woods Richardson, which everyone was kind of like, hey, man, why are we getting shut down by this guy? Like, he was a former, relatively, I wouldn't say top prospect, but, a pretty well-known prospect, was part of, the Jose Barrios deal. So it's he's got a little bit of a track record. He's pitching well this year, but he did set his career high for strikeouts after the first, 3 innings or whatever, just because he was mowing the Mariners hitters down. Colton, game 1 left a lot to be desired for the Mariners as a whole.
Yeah, 3 whole hits for this baseball team. Jorge Polanco, Mitch Garver, and Mitch Haniger with the 3 hits in this game. 2 walks for Cal Raleigh as well. Mitch Garver did have an RBI in this game. Really, not much to talk about here other than Luis Castillo going 6 2/3. He gave up 3 earned runs, 3 hits, 3 walks, struck out 7. Luis continues to be pretty good. The 3 walks, not a huge fan of. But again, 3 earned runs. It's another game where a Mariners pitcher goes out there and gives you a quality start, and the Mariners just can't capitalize on it. The offense, once again, looked pretty poopy. We saw our guy now. I'm adopting him.
I will allow shared custody of Josh Rojas. I'll allow it.
Josh Rojas went 0 for 4. Julio 0 for 4. Ty France 0 for 3. Just buns, man. Just absolute buns out of this Mariners offense, which is unfortunately kind of just par for the course at this point. Again, the Twins kind of put it on the Mariners there. I think it Ryan Jeffers? Or was that the game 2 where he had the big home run? I think it might have been game 2.
It was game 2 where Jeffers popped a big homer to...
Max Kepler had the 2-run home run.
Yeah.
Carlos Correa went 2 for 4 with 2 doubles. I'm blaming that on you.
I know. I literally trolled him. I was like, I reverse jinxed Carlos Correa in the podcast, or maybe not reverse jinxed. I jinxed it for the Mariners fans because I said the contract's not working out super great for Minnesota. After I said that, and upon some reflection, it's not all about what you see on the field as well. There's moments in the playoffs last year where he's calling for a pickoff play with Vladdy on second. That's a huge moment for the Twins as a baseball team, and that he's the the part of that that nucleus that is bringing about a winning culture in Minnesota. So Carlos Correa, that's my bad, guys. I poked the bear. I woke the snake, if you will. Don't wake the snake. You drinking my sake, Kimosabi? But I think we've talked enough about game 1 because realistically, 3 hits, there's nothing really doing. And we go to game 2, and it really felt like not that we needed game 1 to win because you have Castillo on the mound, but going into game 2, it's Emerson Hancock, and we've talked about it plenty of times. It's you're either going to get a relatively okay quality start, or things could get hairy for you really quick because his fastball doesn't play up as much as the other guys in this rotation. And when his stuff kind of falls away, like the movement's not there, his command goes away, it really is just 92 kind of sitting in the middle of the zone. And that kind of happened to Emerson Hancock here in that third inning. Colton, you mentioned Ryan Jeffers already earlier, did pop a big 3-run home run in that third inning. Emerson Hancock only gave us 4 innings in the second game there. But even with those runs on the board for Minnesota, the Mariners offense knew they had a job to do. And after being completely lost, only scoring 1 run in the first game, they said, let me multiply it by 10. Let me drop 10 on Minnesota real quick. Let me really just give it to them in one game. Hopefully they allow themselves to spread it out across multiple games here. But Colton, 10 runs for the Mariners in the second game. What do you think changed? Like, what was the big difference maker for the Mariners offense from game 1 to game 2?
This is going to sound weird.
Oh.
But I think that the Mariners in game 1 set themselves up to win in game 2 because they got to Griffin Jacks. He had to throw like over 20-something pitches. John Duran was down in game 2 as well. So the Minnesota Twins had to turn to some of the lesser parts of their bullpen, and that's exactly what happened. When you look at their pitching staff in game 2, Bailey Ober, 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 Ks. Cole Sands came in, had 1 inning, struck out 1, nothing else to talk about. Then you get to Jay Jackson, who, when the Mariners were down by 2, at this point, it was 4-2. It's a position where he doesn't find himself in normally, in trying to hold a 2-run lead in like the 7th inning. Jay Jackson comes in, he walks 1, gives up 2 hits, and then they pull him out of the game, and they bring in Stephen O'Kerr and Scott Service. Of course, nobody mentions the fact that Scott Service made the right move by putting in Cal Raleigh there to pinch hit, right? Which, yes, it is the obvious move, yes. But, I mean, hey, people always complain about his moves. But they never say, hey, good move, Scott.
They never give
Cal
him the
Raleigh
pat on the
comes in.
back.
No. Cal Raleigh comes in, absolutely poops on a baseball, Joe.
Dude.
Poops on the baseball.
Tanked.
Into the upper deck for his first career grand slam, giving the Mariners a lead at 6-4 off of Stephen O'Kerr. And at that point, the vibe shifted in this game because we all saw the bases get loaded, and we're like, oh, good. Oh, great. Oh, grand.
Here we go.
The Seattle Mariners with the bases loaded. We're lucky if they score 1 here. And you know what? They scored 4. So obviously a big moment for this team, kind of a vibe shifter in Minnesota. But then, Joe, things kind of changed because the Twins were able to tie up this ballgame.
Yeah, so Hancock, like I mentioned, only went 4 innings. Spire came in, wasn't exceptionally sharp, didn't really have anything go against him. There could have been a bad spot there for Spire, but Voth comes in, gets him out of a little bit of a jam. I think there's 2 runners on or something like that when he exited. Only got 2 outs, but Voth gives you an inning and a third. And then after they take the lead, Tyson Miller comes in and gives up, what was it, back-to-back doubles? Something like that. I know
Yep.
Something like that. Back-to-back doubles, and it's within 1. We're like, okay, what's going on here? Why are we pitching this like we're not winning a 2-run ball game? Like, is Tyson Miller really the best option for the Mariners to go to? It is only at that point. It's still pretty early on in the like leverage innings. So I understand maybe why the decision there was to go to Scott. Whoa. To go to Tyson Miller, and he's been decent so far in his time up with the ball club. So I it is what it is. Yes.
Can I break some news here on the Hit It Here podcast?
Of course.
The Pittsburgh Pirates are calling up top pitching prospect Paul Skeens to start on the 11th.
Well, there you go. Fantasy baseball people, go start clicking on claim on Paul Skeens if you don't already have him. Colton, I'm sure you already have him. I think you already have him in 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go get him in the other ones. So Paul Skeens, dude's going to come up and throw a perfect game in his first outing. Now I'm jinxing. I'm trying to jinx it here so he does bad since Colton's going to go pick him up. Anyways, Game 2, bullpen issues here. The tying run that the Twins scored was an unfortunate one to say the least. They score one in the bottom of the 7th off Tyson Miller. They score another in the bottom of the 8th to tie the game heading into the 9th. And it's all because, unfortunately, Taylor Saucedo hurt himself in a pretty bad way, stepping on the bag, trying to make a play on a ball that Ty France maybe could have shown a little bit more urgency with. Maybe. It's a little backhanded play to his right. A fast runner and Austin Martin in a pinch hit situation. It's tough. It's tough to see Saucedo go down like that. And on that same play, it's Kepler on third, who was on second, goes to third on the ground ball. But then as Saucedo's on the ground, he scores. And he apologized in a weird, like maybe not apologized. He spoke on the matter after the game and said it was a dick move. I respect what Max Kepler said. It is a baseball live play. They can't really call the play dead, unfortunately. Although it's still a little weird watching a guy score from third while a player is just on the ground writhing in pain. But tie ball game there. And Colton, you mentioned it. The Twins just didn't have their best relievers in play. So they go to a gentleman. This is in the 8th inning. He had an okay time in the 8th inning.
Gentleman.
Jorge Alcala, is that how I'm going to pronounce it?
Sure.
He had a good 8th inning, relatively. But in the 9th, he does end up giving up a 4 spot. His final line was 2 innings, 4 hits, 4 earned, 2 walks, only struck out 1. Bro, they had him pitch 48. He threw 48 pitches. There was no hope. He was a dead man set out there just to hung out to dry, is how I would describe what Baldelli did to Alcala there. The Mariners make it a 4-run game, and they still go to Munoz for the bottom of the 9th to really solidify the win. Overall, really great offensive performance from the Mariners in game 2, and hopefully it can carry over, through the rest of this series, Colton.
Yep. On to game 3, Joe.
Well, Colton, game 3 did not go really how we had all hoped it would. And I'm here by myself just because Colton had some business to attend to, and we wanted to record this section of the podcast after the game because it's a little weird with the release schedule. So just bear with me for a little bit here. Game 3, George Kirby wasn't his sharpest. Gave up 3 solo home runs, 2 in the first inning, and an extra base hit to Willie Castro later on. Those are the only 4 hits that George gave up. Through 5 innings, 70 pitches, 4 hits, 4 earned runs. He was not allowing the Twins to make a ton of hard contact, but the ones that they did some damage, unfortunately. Whereas the Mariners on the other side, they were stringing hits together left and right this evening, it felt like, against Chris Paddock. I think he gave up 8 hits over his 5 1/3, but he struck out 10. He was able to limit those guys that got on. He was able to strand them. The Mariners were 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. They left 19 men on base, and they struck out 13 times. The bullpen after Kirby did all right other than Cody Bolton because the game got pretty close. Cal Raleigh had a clutch RBI double in the top of the 7th inning, which brought it to a 1-run game, but later, Cody Bolton would unfortunately allow a couple more runs to score in the bottom of the 8th. 3 hits, 2 earned. Just wasn't in the Mariners' cards tonight. Julio had another great day, I'd say. Back-to-back good games from him. 3 for 5 tonight. Cal, like I said, Garver. The guys that struggled, right? Haniger and France, one of them needs a day off. Raley should be starting in either right field or at first base for this Thursday game. I'm hoping. I have to hope that that's the case because it has not looked... It didn't look pretty for either Haniger or France. In the third game, I'm mainly thinking France, any fastball high and outside, he just looked confused at what was coming at him. He just did not look comfortable. So Ty probably needs a day off in this final game against Pablo Lopez on Thursday. Good news for the Mariners is, it's weird good news. It's a similar vibe that Colton proposed after game 1 going into game 2. Griffin Jax threw 26 pitches in this third game, and Joan Duran threw 18. They're probably both shut down for the 4th and final game of this 4-game series. The Mariners' win streak of series has been snapped. They cannot win this one. They can tie it, though, with Logan Gilbert on the mound against Pablo Lopez and a short Twins bullpen. So I'm hoping that even if we can't get to Pablo Lopez, the bullpen on the Twins side will not be able to hold the Mariners' offense down. But We just have to kind of wait and see, Colton.
Yeah, I think that the Mariners have the pitching matchup like advantage here because it is Logan Gilbert, obviously, you know, kind of my favorite and everyone's favorite at the moment to win the American League Cy Young, Joe. I think that the Mariners have the pitching advantage, but Pablo Lopez is no slouch. The Mariners are going to strike out 700 times against him. Like you said earlier before this series, he's going to set the strikeout record in a single game against the Mariners, Joe.
Fun fact, I
And
cut that part out of that podcast.
alrighty then. Well, never mind. You guys didn't hear that just now. I don't know. I think that looking ahead to this game, Mariners offense has to be on, and we talked a little bit, or we need to talk a little bit about whether or not Cal Raleigh starts in that game because he is starting game or started game 3 versus the Twins. Does he start a 10-10 game tomorrow, or do they once again start Seby Zavala? It's hard to imagine a 4-game series where Cal Raleigh only starts 2 of the games with how hot he's been. But at the same time, just timing wise, that's a lot of wear and tear to put on Cal Raleigh.
Yeah, I mean, he did pinch hit in the final game, or sorry, in the tail end of the second game. So got 2 at bats as well, and it's a situation where like maybe that plays into the fact that he will probably. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another like half day for Cal, if that makes sense, in the final game against the Twins against Pablo Lopez. Like maybe once the bullpen is in play for Minnesota, maybe that's when Cal comes in. Like, again, I don't think Zavala stands a chance against Pablo Lopez, but again, making sure Cal gets at least part of that final day off on Thursday, especially with it being such an early day, then you have to travel, come back home for the following game against, starting the series against the Athletics. I think I know it's not fun to not see Cal Raleigh, who's been your best like pop, your best slugging hitter. However, to make sure that he's going to be healthy for as long as we can hope, consistently not injured, getting him another day off, if it's a full game, so be it. If the Mariners can't win without Cal Raleigh in the lineup, then something's wrong. They got to figure something out. They got to have another guy step up. Cal can't be the only guy doing it. You'll see Zavala get 2, maybe 3 at bats, and I don't know. There's been worse black holes in this Mariners lineup in years previous. It can happen once for a full game in Minnesota, and the Mariners offense, I still have faith that they can do enough to get the job done.
There might be worse black holes on this team right now.
Whoa. Then Seby Zavala? Whoa.
Like, big moment right now. Who you trusting, Seby Zavala or Julio Rodriguez?
Don't say it. Stop. you're engagement farming. You're baiting.
Yeah, so you mentioned Cal being a little bit banged up, and obviously we talked about Taylor Saucedo getting hurt in this series, Joe. As we kind of transition here to our next topic, there have been some moves, and they haven't been officially announced at the time that we're recording this. However, Kirby Snead is in the Major League clubhouse before Game 3, along with who?
Bizzardo.
Yeah, that's right. Edward Bizzardo exists.
The deadline acquisition of 2023, Edward Bizzardo, throwing major league innings, leverage major league innings for the Mariners ball club. Yeah, I mean, if you think that they're going to try and add another lefty, you're probably thinking Kirby Snead. Because you're losing Taylor Saucedo. Your only lefty in the pen is Gabe Spire, who pitched in the second game. If you want a lefty available in Game 3, you're probably having Kirby Snead be that guy. And it was a guy that in the offseason through spring training was someone that we were kind of toying with the fact that he's part of the pile, the arm pile, that could play into the Mariners bullpen even to start the year, like in the big leagues. But Snead did not see himself make the big league club. Has been in Tacoma through 12 games, 12 1/3 innings pitched. He's pitching to a 2.92 ERA, giving up 9 hits, 4 earned. He's given up 2 homers in the PCL, so that's pretty standard, I would say. Struck out 13 batters, so about a strikeout an inning. If it's a lefty guy that you're like, you really feel like if Scott and everyone else really feel like they need a lefty, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Kirby Snead. He's got a fair amount of major league experience, albeit not great with Oakland. A little bit better in Toronto, but that was limited action way back when in 2021.
Yeah, and he is in the Major League clubhouse with Bizzardo. I think the corresponding moves will be obviously Saucedo to the injured list and sending Emerson Hancock back down. Now, we talked about Hancock in his last start here. Had that one bad inning, but all in all, Emerson Hancock came up here and he did his job for the Seattle Mariners. He gave you a chance to win more times than not when he was out there on the mound, and I got to commend Emerson Hancock. Nobody believed in him at the start of this year to kind of be decent in that rotation, but he was relatively all right. And you may be like questioning what the heck's going on. Like, okay, you're calling up two relievers here. You're not going to need another starter until either Hancock's next turn in the rotation, or as we'll get into in just a little bit, when Brian Wu comes back, possibly on Friday for the Oakland series to push everybody back a day. So that's going to be the move. One of these two guys will probably get sent back down. I would assume Kirby Snead, or get DFA'd or whatever it's going to be. I would assume it's going to be Kirby Snead on Friday when Brian Wu comes back, Joe, which is something that Ryan Divish hinted at. Nothing is official as of yet, but the possibility that Brian Wu is coming back on Friday, he kind of thinks that's the plan, that Wu will start Friday versus Paul Blackburn and the Athletics, and that will help push everybody else in this rotation back a day.
Yeah, I never really thought about the fact that sending Hancock down, going an extra man in the pen was really an option. I didn't really think about it until you'd said it, like why they would have both relievers there in the ballpark in Minnesota, because like you don't need Hancock. He's done until 5 days from now. Like bro's not going to throw a baseball. So if you see a way to give yourself an advantage in some capacity, that would be the way to do it. I would be curious to see how the rotation kind of lines up, if they're still pretty like they're going to be okay with Wu taking that spot starting Friday against he's going against Friday, the day of the week. It's a tough matchup for him.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Just waiting for Friday, working for the weekend. Pitching against Paul Blackburn, you're saying moving everybody back. I will be curious to see how it kind of like reslots the rotation in that way, and how what Hancock's day lines up as, if that makes sense. How that kind of continues going forward. You think it'll be Snead that gets DFA'd or sent back down for Wu over Bizardo? I feel like they'd probably just want to keep the second lefty, but regardless.
Why would they do that when they're just going to trade for Tanner Scott next week?
Okay. I don't have as much foresight as you do, my friend. All right. My apologies. I'm living in the here and now. All right. Not the rest of the week. But once the Mariners wrap up Minnesota, they do get to return home. Very exciting. Good promotions too. Cal Funko night. I think the dump yard or whatever is happening on the.
Oh, that's right.
Is that Friday or Saturday?
I believe that's Friday.
It's big. Just overall good vibe. You should go. Overall good vibes with the Oakland coming to town. Paul Blackburn, shockingly enough, for this Athletics team, has actually been really solid. He's pitched really well so far in 2024. 3-1 with a 3 ERA, flat, 31 strikeouts. Has, I think, been what they expected him to be last year. A veteran presence in their rotation. But the Mariners, with Brian Wu making his regular season debut, his 2024 debut, Friday. I mean, yeah, Paul Blackburn's been good, but it is the Athletics at the end of the day. Yes, they are, as it stands right now, 17-20. They're playing decent baseball for what we expected out of them. They're playing for the city that cares, but the owners don't. So maybe that's kind of fueling their fire. The advantage still goes to the Mariners in this series, Colton. Like, without a doubt, looking at it on paper, the guys that are playing right now, like, yes, some guys are having decent years. Some guys are stepping up. Like Brent Rooker has gone pretty nuclear in the last week or so. I'm not supremely worried about this Athletics roster. And maybe that's my own problem. Like, I should be worried about them because you have to just play the team in front of you. And maybe the scariest team to play is the team that doesn't have any expectations. That's definitely
left to lose.
Yeah, it's like it's a mindset thing. And hopefully the Mariners don't come home and let that mindset kind of creep in. And Brian Wu, he's looked really great in his rehab starts. Hopefully he can continue that excellence against the Athletics on Friday.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to this Mariners pitching staff, compared to the Oakland offense, like the Mariners should have no problem winning these games. Should, theoretically. I think this is a good matchup when it comes to this Mariners pitching staff because of how dominant they've been. We've seen them take it to some of the best offenses in baseball. Like you look at the Rangers, you look at the Braves. They shouldn't, keyword is shouldn't, have any issue with the Oakland Athletics offense. At the same time, though, we know how bad this Mariners offense is. It's another series, Joe, where it's just win the series. Like, hopefully sweep, but win the series. We'll say that more often than not, except for like when you play the White Sox, and you should just sweep the series.
Yeah. I mean,
But with how
if this Athletics team was playing to what we expected out of them, which I would probably say instead of 17-20, you might be looking at like
7
7
and
and
30.
30, right? Then it's a sweep. But they're actually playing really well. So I get what you're saying though. Continue your thought.
Mhm.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah, how dare you, first of all.
seriously,
But
it's so disrespectful.
it's ridiculous.
I'm gonna pull out
So
an
the way
eyelash right now.
I was not expecting that.
Bad
Um,
me.
bad me. So looking at the pitching staff right now, right? So you have who's on the mound today? Is it George?
George and then Logan in the final game. So in this series, it'll go Woo, Miller, Castillo.
Mm-hmm. Woo, Miller, Castillo, and then who did we have? Blackburn, and then
I think
Sears
it should be Blackburn, Wood, and Stripling.
and Stripling.
So because
Okay,
Sears is pitching today, Wednesday. Osvaldo Bido is pitching Thursday. The one like it just gets a little funky because we're a couple days out. We can't. They don't have the probables listed as it stands. But
Joe Boyle just went on the IL.
yeah. So like, is Joey Estes making a start? I don't know if he's even on the major league club right now. He's just a guy that I know pitched for them last year. I think the matchups looking ahead are Blackburn versus Woo, Miller versus Wood, who's a lefty, and then Castillo versus Stripling, who got derailed by the Rangers in his last start out.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I had him for that start.
Oh, did
In one of our
you?
leagues. Yeah, I wanted an extra pitcher for a game.
Damn. It's a
Um,
tough one.
yeah. So again, Mariners have the pitching advantage in this series. We're gonna see like we talked about Brian Wu coming back in this series. Very excited for him. Hopefully, the Mariners. It's gonna be a really nice weekend. Like a very nice. It's gonna be supposed to be in like the 80s all weekend.
Oh.
Mother's Day weekend on Sunday. Like
Mhm.
it's a big weekend for the Mariners. Again, you talked about the Cal promotions and whatnot. I think that this series is one that can really set the Mariners straight. I mean, not that they've looked bad recently, but specifically the offense. Once it starts to get a little nicer in Seattle, we know the ball starts to fly a little bit. So hopefully the offense, specifically guys like Julio and Mitch Garver, can really get it going. Because once those guys start going, this pitching staff's going to give you a chance to win more often than not. If the Mariners offense gets going, this team could go on a big run.
Yeah, I was just looking at their record at home so far this year. They're 11-8, and they're 9-8 on the road as it stands. That will change by the time you're hearing this, but it seems like the Mariners are playing good baseball at home. It's a situation where like they're not really. I mean, they're about the same on both sides here so far, but you're saying like the weather's heating up. Maybe Julio starts to get his bat going. The pitching will be good enough to, I think, level out the rest of the other offense that might step forward for the opposing teams. But the Mariners offense should realistically take the big leap forward, and they've been winning games without it for the most part. I mean, we did see them drop 10 runs in Minnesota the second game. So it's like there's been glimpses of it, but will it, balance out to be like a more consistent approach? I mean, if the players on the team like their moms, it's a good weekend to do it. Shout out to all the moms, okay? If you don't show up for your mom on Mother's Day, guys, you're a bad son. I'm just kidding. That's mean.
That's right.
But like it's a situation. I think there's been times where guys step up in those moments, and like I think back to like George Kirby making his debut on Mother's Day. It's a situation like he had a great first start to his major league career there. I don't even remember if they won the game, but I just remember like specific instances where like there are moments like that. Think about like Dallas Braden throwing a perfect game on Mother's Day way back when. Like
Felix got his 2,500 strikeout that day.
there you go. See,
I don't know. There's a video
knowledge
on the channel somewhere, guys, where I talked about the best Mariners Mother's Day moments. Got like 6 views, so go find it and blow it up.
Exactly.
For Mother's Day.
Well, they could watch it, Colton, right now.
You know what, Joe? They should. By clicking on this video on the screen right now. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 85 of the Hit It Here podcast presented by Bet Online. The Jason Peterson episode of the Hit It Here podcast, and go freaking Mariners.